Recording. Hey! Hello,
Yay!
hello.
So I'm Sam.
And I'm Mason.
And you know it's good when you hear right kind company.
Yay! I just want to say before we start, I understand that this lighting is homophobic, but I do what I can. So.
Well, I was going to ask the glasses. Why am I the only one wearing glasses today?
Because if I put on glasses, it looks weird. It looks like,
got you.
yeah.
Okay.
So now you're a blob. You're a blurry blob.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I do it. I'm not at home. I'm in a hotel. It is what it is. We're doing.
Yeah, Mason's busy living his best life. I'm at home. I'm the same place I always am. So just have to deal with it. Okay, so today we are talking about the last part of our history series, which is History 3, Make Our Days Count. And I have to say, this is one of the most important boys' love that we've talked about, in my opinion, because there's so much to talk about, but also like in a lot of ways, this boys' love has set the standard for a lot of things that we have judged other boys' loves off of. This show concluded in December of 2019, so before Tharn Type ended, before Dark Blue Kiss ended, before Until We Meet Again began, I believe, or like right at the beginning of their beginning. And so after watching this show, really the taste levels for everything were elevated. And so I think it's important for those of you who have watched the show to understand why it has so much elevated the taste levels, because it might not be readily apparent just by looking at the synopsis, which Mason will share with us, but this show has got layers and it does a lot in a short amount of time.
Right.
And if they can do it, everyone needs to be doing it.
Right. And I think the reason this one is more of the tastemaker than Trapped, which came right before it, is because Trapped didn't really feel like a boys' love, whereas Make Our Days Count very much is a boys' love.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So Mason's going to give us the synopsis.
Okay, here we go. So Make Our Days Count is about Chiang Hao-ting, and he is kind of the class delinquent in a way. He's just heart on his sleeve, goofy kid, de facto leader of his friend group, and he ends up through shenanigans getting involved with Yushigu, who is like the class bookworm. He is very studious. He stays till school at 9 p.m. He's constantly either studying or he's at work at some odd job he has. So most of the show follows those two, but there's also a second couple who have roughly the same amount of screen time, and that's Sunbao and brother Ji-chang. I'm gonna call him Mr. Thomas for Sam will explain later why I will be calling him Mr. Thomas. So Mr. Thomas and Sunbao, Sunbao is Chiang Hao-ting's like brother, not his blood brother, but like one of his best friends. It's his bro, basically. And Mr. Thomas is a older gentleman, but like maybe like mid to late 20s. You know, he's not like a grandpa, but he is older than the 17-year-old boy. And basically how they end up falling in love. Essentially, Sunbao like low-key stalks him at his Sunbao's cousin owns a gym, and Mr. Thomas is a frequent visitor of the gym, and Sunbao just kind of like, you know, chats him up, starts making his moves on Mr. Thomas. And it's about the lives of these high school boys as they go through their third and final year of high school. Like what colleges they're gonna go to, the struggles that it takes. That's like the basic summary. But I feel like this is one where it'd be kind of nice if we went through almost episode by episode, like the plot lines. So that's just the general summary.
Okay. So Mason had warned you guys well in advance. Hold on. Can you please not be loud? Thank you. Be loud somewhere else. Sorry about that, guys. I'm a full-time mom, so these things happen. People opening really loud candy wrappers right next to...
I didn't hear anything.
So Mason warned you guys ahead of time that we were going to be, this could warrant an episode by episode review, but neither one of us have the time to film an episode by episode review. But this very first episode, I was surprised how much the characters developed over the course of the series, because frankly, I did not like a couple of people in this very first episode.
Oh,
And
really?
yes, I did not like Hao Ting.
Really? I thought right away, I'm like, he is incredibly charming.
I felt different, but I felt different because, as I said earlier, I'm the mother of a child full time, and kids sometimes will sass off at you, and you just want to strangle them. And when he was in class talking back to the teacher, I remember thinking, this asshole. So I personally was like, that's the kid that I would warn my child about. Like, don't hang out with him. He's a bad influence.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes.
I think the reason I liked him so much was I think the show did a really good job with the setup of everything, like setting up the who, what, when, and why of the four like main characters that we needed to know about. Like the first scene we have, I don't remember what it was, because it was like, there was like a small scene with like Jigu studying, I think is like the actual first scene, but like the real first scene is Hao Ting in class. And you know immediately he is smart and he was top of the class, but he like literally chooses to do bad on tests. Like his teacher literally was like, you clearly got all the answers right, you just like, you know, he filled them out wrong or something, like on purpose. So he's clearly smart. He kind of chooses to be a bit of like a delinquent. You know, immediately he's kind of the de facto leader of his friend group. They all think he's the hot shot, you know, the funny one. And those are really important to his character throughout. And I just think that they set that up so well in one scene where he's talking back to his teacher, and then his teacher's like, well, you know, if you don't want to be here, just leave. And then he leaves, and they do this like anime camera pan that I loved, where it's like all the kids are like cheering for him, like, yeah, he stood up to the teacher, and they're screaming like rah rah rah, and they all run to the window, and they're like hanging out the window, like waving at him as he's running away from school. It's just like such an anime moment, and I love that.
Yeah, I didn't like Hao Ting in the first episode. He seemed like a smartass, and that's never my favorite type of person. I'm sorry. But I did appreciate how they showed the friendship group. A lot of the conversation they were having, a lot of the kind of playing around with each other, you get the sense right away that they're very close to one another and that they're real boys. And I think we've talked about that several times, about establishing real people in these shows. So this is what I would say is the first main point I want to bring about when it comes to like standard bearer. There are so many shows where there are friendship groups that are noted as being important to the main characters, but you don't see a lot of them. And a great example of that would be Dark Blue Kiss. The friendship group in Dark Blue Kiss are supposedly important to Pete and Cal, but there's very little interaction. One of their members of the friendship group is like practically a mute. And so you don't get the feeling like this is a really important person to you, because it doesn't get displayed. And actions definitely speak louder than words. Telling me someone is important is much weaker than showing that someone is important. And watching them play around and argue and be affectionate with each other, it is the kind of friendship that you want to see. Because then when they're having to conquer issues inside of their friendship, or when each individual is having a problem and they need the support of their friends, you understand the well of emotion that everyone is experiencing, because they are so very close. So that is one of the main things that this show does better than any other show I've watched, is establishing the people who are friends are really friends. And
I would say even like outside of Boys Love, just like of shows I've seen, I think this is still one of the best examples I've seen of a friend group that really works. And you understand, like, you could see that, like, you can totally see what they would do hanging out or going to the movies. Like, they do such a good job of them. One of my favorite scenes is there's a scene where it's only 3 of them, but like 2 of them are playing a stupid game. They have like a chair and they're playing like Battleship or something, and they're like, target achieved, go. And then like one of them throws a basketball, it's like the Rocket or whatever. It's just like they're dumb high school boys doing dumb high school boy things. It felt very observed, very relatable. It's like, I may not have done those things, but I feel like someone has done those things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and like they argue about food, they talk about playing video games,
Mm-hmm.
like their senses of humor are very similar. And it's important that they do that because later on, when the friendship group is harassing Yushigu, you're like, okay, I can see where they would do that because they all matter so much to one another. Whereas if that wasn't firmly established, you wouldn't get why his friends would care about Yushigu trying to get close to Hao Ting's girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah, and like why they would be so extreme about, picking on him about this. But once you see their closeness right away, you're like, okay, I get it. They're defensive of their bro because they're also very close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like that a lot. Also, another relationship that is beautifully portrayed is the relationship of Hao Ting's family.
Yeah.
I love his family, and his daddy could get it any day of the week.
It's an attractive cast.
Yes, it is. But his damn daddy, like, they did a really good job of picking older actors who look very much like their children.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really cool. But also, like, the way that all of the members of Hao Ting's family interact with each other are very much real dynamics. You've got the mom, who's kind of the softie, but is secretly in control of everybody else in the family. You've got kind of the bratty sister, but she shares a really strong bond with her brother, and they're actually close, even though they pick at each other. And then you've got the dad, who's like kind of a hard ass because he's like has a hard time expressing his emotions, but is secretly quite soft and quite kind. And just like, I love his family. I really do. Even when the issue of his dating comes up and it's not as positive as you'd want it to be, you still get the sense that they're like a really tight family and that they love each other a lot. And
Right.
that they don't do things to hurt each other purposefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They handled that really well.
Yeah. So, like, the introductions for characters in this show were very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's all good.
It's brilliant. Like, it's just quality filmmaking here, guys. Quality filmmaking.
Yeah.
So initially when we meet Hao Ting, he has a girlfriend. I mentioned her briefly, but he's got a girlfriend, and we see them making out at the very beginning of the show. And one thing that I kind of found a little bit of a parallel is there was a moment when they were making out at the beginning of the show because he goes to the nurse's office because something happens. Somehow or another, he gets hurt and has to go to the nurse's office, and she takes him to the nurse's office. And when she takes, like, the girlfriend takes him to the nurse's office. When they get there, they start making out, and he's unbuttoning her shirt and looking into her shirt as he's getting ready to, like, reverse their roles. And it very much mirrored the scene on the parents' living room couch. And I was like, huh, interesting, because Hao Ting was in the girl's position with Yushigu unbuttoning his shirt. And I'm like, where have I seen this before? So anyway, I really enjoyed that, but I liked the fact that they show us from the get-go he wasn't just dating girls and didn't know if he liked girls or not. Like, he absolutely was dating this girl.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. He was absolutely dating this girl. Like, they were making out, making plans to be together. This was his chick. Not only that, but you also get established very firmly on he's a very passionate person. Like, yeah, to be under his gaze would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So, they did a lot of that, and they did that really well. But one thing that I noticed upon second watch that I didn't notice at first, when I first watched the show, I thought that Yushigu discovering them sleeping in his favorite bunk was him being, like, shocked and kind of like, I didn't mean to intrude. But his eyes linger for quite a while before he's told to pull the curtain. And it made me feel like, okay, Yushigu already had a little bit of interest here. There was already, yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because they kind of reestablished, they kind of confirmed that in a later episode, because there's an episode where Xiaoting is like looking at his phone. He has like all these pictures of Yushigu on his phone because he's firmly like, Yushigu, I like you. And Yushigu's kind of like, I don't know yet. He won't really commit to anything. And Xiaoting's like, look, I have a bunch of photos of you on my phone that are you looking at me. Why are you looking at me so much? And then Shigu's like, all right, you caught me. So yeah, I think that was like kind of a bit of a lead into the scene that was going to happen later.
Yeah, which I appreciate because, I mean, I didn't know that I was going to be going back and watching this show. And so it was kind of a nod to those who do go back and rewatch things that you could see that connection right away. Whereas I don't think I picked that up from the very beginning because personally as a viewer, I was embarrassed. Like I was embarrassed for everybody. Like, oh gosh, what are we doing? Let's go. So I really like that. Also, we get established very early on that Yushigu is having a tough time because the nurse talks to him about the fact that, you know, he's sleeping instead of eating, and they show kind of his life. They show him at home with that one piece of bread that he eats half of at night, and then the next morning the other half is his breakfast. And so like they did a really a lot of good moves in establishing everybody's position. So that was really great. Now, as we go further into episodes, I was so mad at Haoting. So incredibly mad at him because he's a fucking husky. He really is. Like, he is absolutely a husky. He does stuff and he doesn't think very long about it. He just rushes into action. And because of that, him and Yushigu just, I don't know, man. Like, I was angry for a long time. Up until like about maybe episode 4, I was really angry at Haoting. Really, really angry.
I mean, he pulls some really terrible shit on Yushigu. It's he reminded me of Leslie Knope. Have you ever seen Parks and Rec?
No.
That's fair. But if anyone's seen Parks and Rec, Xiaoting kind of reminds me of Leslie Knope because she's a character that she really cares for like her friends and family, and she's always wearing her heart on her sleeve, but sometimes she'll bulldoze people and thinking she's doing what's right, but really she's not doing what's best for the individuals involved. And I feel like that's Xiaoting. Like, he'll do something he thinks is right or helpful for a friend or for himself or for another person, and it's ultimately a bad decision, you know? But like, it was, I think a scene that was really hard to watch was the one where Xiaoting makes him late for class, because we know right away that he studies all the time, he's poor, you know, he doesn't really have a family, and he works a lot. So school is very important to him. And you can kind of guess, like, this dude really needs to get into a good school to improve his life. And Xiaoting makes him late for a test. And Yushigu literally gets on his knees and begs the teacher to let him take it. Because if he doesn't get to take it, it'll affect his scholarship and he won't be able to afford next semester's tuition at high school. He won't be able to afford finishing high school. And you're like, that was the moment where it was really hard to watch. And Xiaoting justifiably gets punched in the face for it too. Like, he earned that one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the series of events that happens, so Yushigu becomes the focus of attention by Haoting's girlfriend. She is actively chasing after Yushigu. And of course, Haoting's friends take a lot of pictures and like, look, he's trying to mac on your girl. At one point, they actually confront him about Hao Ting's girlfriend, and they punch him in the stomach, which causes him to be late for class. And the teacher's like, listen, I can't excuse your absence unless you tell me what happened. So he tells the teacher, these boys beat me up and they have to sweep. So once that happens, Hao Ting is like, well, my friends were defending my honor, so I've got to get back for them. Right. And so he then proceeds to pull a prank on Yushigu. He kidnaps Yushigu's desk and takes it away. And then the school monitor, I guess, sees him about to punch Yushigu. He gets a punishment. And so he's like, I'm going to get back at this guy for getting my friends in trouble, for getting me in trouble. I'm going to make him late for exams because he's a bookworm, and bookworms hate to miss tests. And immediately after Yushigu gets in the class and is begging to be able to take this test and everything else, all of a sudden Hao Ting realizes, like, this was not a harmless prank. Like, it's one thing to take somebody's desk. It's another thing to, perhaps write graffiti on their desk or, maybe hide their books. But this is something that obviously means a lot to this person, enough for them to grovel on their knees. And it is just, I think it's great because right then, for the first time, we see that how somebody who has remorse, but also we establish for Yushigu, like, how utterly beaten down he is by everything. Like, we got that he was poor, we got that he was lonely, all that stuff, but like, once this happens and like a series of other things happen with Yushigu, they're just like bad luck, or like him begging for more money for work and all this other stuff, it's just like, wow, this kid is so utterly alone. And I think after he missed the exam, he goes up to the roof and starts talking to his parents, which is a thing he does throughout the show. He goes up to the rooftop and he'll talk to his parents in the sky. And you get like, this child is just doing everything he can just to make it. And after that, you're like, I don't care what happens throughout the rest of this story, you better not ever do anything to hurt my Shigu.
Right, because he even says, like, his mission statement, he's like, I need to work hard in school so I can get a good job, so I can go into a good university and get a good job and have a good life for myself and not be a burden for anyone. You know, like, that's what he wants, and he actively goes to get it. It's not like he's sitting around doing nothing. He's like, this is what I want. Here are the steps how I'm going to get it. And he does it. He's such a good character.
He is. He's the best, which is why anyway.
You gotta save the last episode for the end.
Yeah. Which is why we love him. We love him. Like, that was the moment in the show for me that I recall thinking, like, no matter what happens the rest of the show, this kitten has got to be protected. He's precious. Yeah. So after that, Hao Ting determines that he wants to make it up to Yushigu. But of course, Yushigu is like, please just leave me alone. Like, I'm sorry, I will beg you to leave me, just whatever, just leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you. I will never tell anybody the bad things you do to me. Just please leave me alone. And Hao Ting, again, because he is a husky, does not use his words, does not talk things out the way that normal people do. And in his haste to kind of get Yushigu's attention, and Yushigu actively pushing him away, he's like, maybe I'm not trying to get his attention to make up for the bad thing I did to him, but maybe I want to get his attention because I want his attention. And so he has a conversation with Sun Bao at the snack truck, I guess. Yeah. And he's like, do you think I'm attractive? He's like, I guess, whatever, fuck you. And he's like, so what does it mean when you like somebody's eyelashes and their lips and their skin and you just want to eat them and you just want to be around them all the time when you wake up and before you go to bed and maybe hold them in your dreams? Does that mean something other than friendship? And I loved that scene. Yeah. Because he's such a big dumb dog. And so...
And I like it too because after Sunbao's like, dude, you probably like this person. He's kind of like, all right, cool. Like, he just kind of moves on. Like, he doesn't have like a long gay panic moment. He's like, all right, it is what it is. Let's make this happen,
Yeah. And I think that's great. And also Sunbao's like, you've liked girls before. Same thing. He's like, but I never liked a guy. I'm like, guys, girls, they're both human beings. It's pretty much the same emotional palette. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll just go and confirm that then. And I'm just like, this is such a matter-of-fact conversation. Good going, guys. But yeah, it was a really cute scene. I really liked that a lot. Also, prior to that moment, Hao Ting had followed Yushigu during the day and pulled Yushigu out of the path of a motorcycle rider. Foreshadow. So anyway.
I have a bone to pick with that note, and I will get to it later.
Yeah, just foreshadow. But also, when he's caught and he's like, what the hell are you doing here? Oh, I'm just passing by. Passing by to where? Oh, I'm headed to yoink. Just runs away. He spends so much time like panic running. Like that is a major theme with Hao Ting's character, is that he is a panic runner, and every time is just like, let me just hit the streets.
Right.
So fun times.
Right.
So we haven't talked about Sunbao and Mr. Thomas yet. And early on with Sunbao and Mr. Thomas, I kind of felt like I missed something. Later on, I was very comfortable with their relationship. I felt very in the pocket. Like, it just felt warm. But initially, it seemed like it went from 0 to 1,000. And I'm like, what the fuck happened here?
Yeah. It's really weird because, like, all of their interactions until they get together are odd. Like, so we have so basically, like, we're told that Sunbao and Mr. Thomas kind of knew each other from the gym for like a year-ish. Maybe chit-chatted a little bit, but, you know, it is what it is. But, like, Sunbao would, like, take photos of him like a fucking stalker. It was creepy, by the way. Don't do that in real life.
No, not at all. It is targeted harassment, literally, for like the first 3 episodes. Targeted harassment.
Yeah, and Hao Ting does similar stuff because he got bad advice from Sunbao. Which we'll talk about Hao Ting's stalking later. So, and then, like, one of the first scenes we really see with Mr. Thomas and Sunbao is, like, Sunbao just, like, he's, like, gonna confess to him, but instead of confessing, he just walks up and starts kissing him. And Mr. Thomas is like, no, thank you, and, like, runs away. So then there's a few times where Sunbao goes to try to apologize, and he ends up just yelling, which Mr. Thomas is like, listen, you came to my place of work, if you're gonna apologize, you need to apologize, but now you're just screaming and making a scene in front of customers. Like, this is getting weird, man. I don't really know you that well. So that happens a few times, and then suddenly in, like, episode 3 or 4, Hao Ting, again, bulldozing a situation, trying to make things right in a way that negatively would affect most people. He goes to Mr. Thomas and he's like, you should date my friend, you know, you'd be so lucky to have him. He's really sorry for what he did, but you would be so lucky. And it's like, you didn't really need to come here and yell at him at his work, Hao Ting. And then Sunbo's like, yeah, no, Hao Ting, like, knock it off. And then Mr. Thomas is like, all right, let's go talk him back. So then Sunbo and Mr. Thomas talk him back. And Mr. Thomas is basically like, listen, I've had my heart broken many a time. It sucks. And I am really not here to have my heart broken by someone much younger than me who doesn't know about the world. And Sunbo's like, never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. And then they're like, boom, we're together. And you're like, but how? I don't know. Mystery. And then everything after that, every scene that they have, I love, and it's so sweet, and I love them together. But how did we go from Hao Ting yelling at Mr. Thomas to, like, a few minutes later they're together?
So I feel like maybe the timeline is different in my mind than it is for yours, because I feel like they had one really good conversation before Hao Ting came in yelling and screaming. But
maybe
I agree with you completely about, like, they go from Sunbao taking illicit pictures of Mr. Thomas, to him kissing Mr. Thomas, then going to Mr. Thomas's business and yelling like, "I'm in gay love with you, love me back."
Uh-huh.
And then finally Sunbao goes like, "May I talk to you for a minute?"
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to talk. He's like, "I'd like to let you know that I would like to swallow your dick every day, and
Yeah.
also I love you with my whole heart."
Yeah,
And
dripped on inside of me.
so Mr. Thomas is like, "Hey, you're young, and this, that, the other," and says, "It's never gonna happen." And then they have Touting coming in and yelling and everything, and then they have a talk in the back. But one of the things that I really wish we had gotten a little bit more of, that kind of let you know that Mr. Thomas, this is reciprocal, because if you just go based on the interaction they've had when they're with each other, you don't understand that this is reciprocal. You don't understand why Mr. Thomas is even allowing Sunbo anywhere near him.
Right.
But there's the time that Sunbo couldn't make it to the gym, and Mr. Thomas is kind of looking for him, like, where's my admirer? Then there is when when Mr. Thomas is talking to his friend who owns the drunk cafe,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "I need to get a job for my part-timer," and I guess the guy is like, "Hey, I could totally get your friend a job, but maybe you need to come have drinks with me." And there's this scene where Sunbao had gone to Mr. Thomas's boba shop, I'm guessing is what it is, went to his boba shop to try to apologize again, and he sees Mr. Thomas get in the car with the owner of the drunk cafe and starts chasing them on his bicycle in the rain. And you can see Mr. Thomas looking at his phone and constantly like talking to him and texting him and like, "Okay, I'm not going to go have a drink with you." And I mean, maybe I'm reading the scene wrong, but it seemed like Mr. Thomas was prepared to like give a little ass in order to get Yushigu a job. And then, I mean, because he's like, "I can get him a job, but you need to come have drinks with me." And then when it's time to go have drinks, it felt like that. I'm sure he didn't mean it, but it felt like that.
No,
But anyway.
I agree. I mean, even when he was like leaving, he like leaned over and like unbuckled his seatbelt,
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, so you're giving up this dick appointment because this teenager who's texting you feel something back. And I wish there had been more moments like that established that Mr. Thomas was receptive, but maybe his own age, maturity, whatever else was the problem. Also, like, he alludes to it a couple of different times, that I had this long-term relationship that distanced me from my family, and then the relationship didn't work out, so I'm kind of gun shy. But I don't know, I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that, or maybe seen a little bit of that. Like, instead of telling me, it would have been cool if maybe at one point Mr. Thomas is like leaving the gym and he sees his ex holding somebody else, and like you could see him just kind of like duck his head down and keep walking, and then you get the feeling, okay, this is an individual who's been hurt, and that's what's the problem here. But like, no,
Right.
there's not a lot of that. So when they do get together, you're kind of, okay, what? All right. Because it's after Houghton comes into the boba shop and is yelling at Mr. Thomas, they go into the alleyway, and all of a sudden they're together now.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I need more. I need more conversations between the two of you.
Yeah.
I need more.
Yeah. It felt sudden, but once they are together, it's really sweet.
Oh, man. So, another Vanguard, episode 6.
I might make that part of the thumbnail for this video.
I made a GIF of that moment and I shared it with friends because I'm like, this is what we're watching.
It's why I started watching the show. Sam sent me the GIF and I was like, yeah, link the video, Sam. She's like, it's a TV show, and I'm like, I better get watching. Come on, it was good. They showed a lot.
I appreciate that, because how many times have I as a woman watched straight media where some woman's whole titty is hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
and she's getting, rammed from behind, butt cheeks flapping, and it's like, oh, it's just art, it's just acting. But the minute you talk about, let's get some real intimacy between two men on film, it's like, well, I don't want to be typecast as the gay. So like a lot of men are really shy of going there. But like episode 6 in the shower, the locker room shower.
Yeah. It's just
It was like,
somehow Mr. Thomas, they're straight fucking, you know.
yeah. I mean, they're incredible actors. Incredible actors.
Oh yes, the acting was Oscar worthy in that scene.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But what I really appreciated about it, besides just, taking it there, is the same passion that Sunbao had the first time he kissed Mr. Thomas in that same locker room, bathroom. That same passion was there, and you get a glimpse of the fact that maybe Mr. Thomas wasn't so much upset that Sunbao kissed him and like, oh, you kissed me unsolicited. It was more like, I don't want to be seen by anybody. You're taking it a little bit too far in public, and also I'm being mature here, and I can't entertain your affection for me. Whereas in this moment, now that he's fully accepted Sunbao, he's like, that same fever you have burning in your loins is burning through mine. Let's go ahead and set this fire going. And I really, really like that kind of mirrored passion, because you wondered about it, and then you see it, and you're like, yeah, these two are crazy for each other.
I will say, no lube and no condom, so.
I don't know. I don't know, because I wonder if like Mr. Thomas, when he was in the shower, was like, getting ready.
He's just douching in the gym shower.
Man, that gym shower is. I would not take a shower in that gym. But yeah, he might have lubed up a little bit prior to coming out in the towel, but definitely no condom, which that's the onus. That doesn't need to happen. But they quickly corrected themselves, because Sunbao's cousin, I'll let you tell it.
So Sunbao's cousin, he knows that him and Mr. Thomas are going together, and he goes to Mr. Thomas's workplace, and he's like, I need to talk to you man to man. And Mr. Thomas is like, okay, whatever. And he basically tells Mr. Thomas, like, listen, I know you're fucking my cousin. It's all cool, but this is embarrassing, but please be safe. And he puts down 3 boxes of condoms. And you're like, that's really sweet, actually.
It was really sweet. Like, I'm not here to intimidate you or pretend to be the big brother. I just don't want anybody to come home with anything they didn't show up for. And then Sunbao is like at the window looking like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. It's a recurring gag that Sunbao thinks that his cousin is trying to mac on his boyfriend, and it's always just like a silly, misunderstanding. It's humor for the show.
Yeah, also Sunbao's cousin, he's built right. He could get it.
I'm telling you, this entire cast could get it, Sam.
I mean, it has got one of the most attractive casts I've seen in a super long time. Even more than Trapped. Even more than, oh gosh. Sunbao's cousin is built right. He's got these really full lips. It's just, and then like the twins. Oh my gosh, the twins. Okay, let us put this argument to the public. Do you think that the smart twin wanted to get with Shigu?
I personally think that if like the director said that's something we had planned, but we didn't have enough time to go with it, I could see it. But honestly, watching it again, knowing that was, I think, didn't they say that they wanted to do that, right? Or was...
I don't know. I mean, it's just a vibe that I got, but I don't know if it was ever confirmed. But watching it, I'm like, you are a much bigger person than me, because I would have made my move. I'd be like, I realize that's my friend and all, but like, I like you.
I think it's up for debate. I think you could argue either one and have enough evidence to say yes. I don't know. I think the evidence for it is pretty weak. Honestly, there's not a lot of like evidence. There's not a lot of like stolen glances. There's not a lot of like anything outright. I think it's all way too subtle and way too buried in subtext for me to say, yes, that is officially a thing. But if you believe it, it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Well, I wanted to bring it up too because this is one of the parts that I felt like they dropped a ball here, and I don't know if it was intentional or if it's just like a reflection of reality. So there's the 5-boy group. Sometimes it's 6, but most of the time it's the 5-boy friendship group. So it's Hao Ting, Sun Bao, the twins, and then their other friend whose name I can't recall. And every once in a while there's, huh?
I think it's Gao Shu.
Could be. And then there's one other guy that shows up like back and forth, but he's not a part of the main group, but he is part of the group when they're looking at the Yaoi books.
Yeah.
And I get the feeling over and over again that the twin with the mole on his cheek is the one who's actually friends with Hao Ting and Sun Bao and this other guy, and that his other twin kind of comes along because they're brothers and they hang out together, but he's not really a part of the friendship group, because when they're dealing with the fact that Sun Bao was outed by Hao Ting, which that was kind of anyway, when they're dealing with that and they decide to check out the Yaoi books in order to study more about the lifestyle of their friends, it's the mole twin, the other friend, and then this other random guy who's in and out of the friendship group. Mm-hmm. Whereas the twin that doesn't have the mole, who's actually in class with Yushigu, it feels like he is a friend, but he's not as close of a friend as the other ones are.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
And I would be interested to either have that corrected, like maybe have some one-on-one conversations with Hao Ting and that guy, or if that's not the case, like, I don't know, maybe establish that he has his own friends, because I almost feel like he was as lonely as Shigu in a lot of ways, even though he's got a brother and he might have a family. We don't know much about him, but like, he just always felt like an outsider throughout the story.
Yeah, there is something left to be desired there. I do wonder if some stuff ended up on the cutting room floor with him.
I think so. So that was the one thing I was like, I wish there was more clarity here. I wish there was a little bit more direction here. But, you know, in real life, that absolutely happens, where you'll have like a set of siblings where they each have their friend circle, and every once in a while one sibling will kind of float between circles, but they're not really like a main cast member.
I mean, I have my older sisters are twins, so I grew up with their different similar friend groups, but not quite, you know.
Yeah. So I appreciate the reality of it, but I felt like there was just something missing there. And especially like when they got to the end of the show and they're all sitting together eating after everyone's kind of grown up or whatever, he still felt like, I'm not really a friend here. Mm-hmm. I'm here because I'm part of the cast, but I wasn't ever really a close friend.
Right.
Yeah. Poor kid. So, friends. We talked about friends and this being one of our best friend groups. The friends find out that Sun Bao would like to go out with a man. And when Hao Ting found out, he was like, really? A guy? Okay. Wait, an old guy? Okay, you know what? I'm not going to judge your taste. Mm-hmm. Just go in there and tell him you like him. So after that, Hao Ting discovers that he's in love with the guy, right? And so he goes to Sun Bao in front of their friends, is like, tell me how to talk to my crush. He won't talk to me, and you like that uncle, so you have more information. And the friends are like, hold up. And in that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, you've outed him. This is terrible.
Yeah.
And of course, Sun Bao runs away. But
right.
Then,
I would too. Jesus Christ.
Hell yeah, absolutely. And he's like, forget everything you heard. But then the friends, because they're actual friends, instead of being like, well, we don't fuck with him no more. Instead they're like, let us do our research.
One of my favorite scenes in the entire show, because it's so wholesome. And you're like, I want friends like that. I want friends that would try to understand me in that way. And what they do is late at night, they rent some yaoi manga from like the library or something. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, let's try to understand the gays. And they're like, and they open it up and it's like yaoi, so it's porn. Mesmerized by it. So then like the next day, they go to Sun Bao and they're like, listen, we just want you to know that we know you like to, and they do this. They go, we know you like the and I'm like, stop doing that. They're like, we know you like that. and they say something that I really like. They say, we're still new to this, so if we say something that is offensive and wrong, just let us know because we're still trying to learn. Very fair thing to say. Love them for that. And then Sunbao's like, yeah, we're still bros. And then Xiao Ting's like, haha, I'm bisexual. And they're like, oh, you know what? Whatever, fine. And then they all like, they get a little goofy after that. And it's just such a fucking wholesome scene.
Yeah, they like dogpile each other after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, look at all these puppies.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do appreciate that. But yeah, the friends here, best friends in all of BL, hands down.
Oh yeah, love them. So I want to get to a character that I first few episodes hated, just because this character was annoying, but overall turned out for the best. Let me know what you think of this. Xiao Ting's girlfriend started off very interesting she's a very interesting character. So basically she's with Xiao Ting. It's more of like, because it does feel a little bit like a status thing, like I'm with one of the hottest, most popular guys in school type of thing. But Xiao Ting isn't, for some reason is just like busy or something, and she's kind of like, oh, but everyone's really into this Shigu guy. I should start getting with him. So she kind of annoyingly flirts with Shigu, and Shigu is very clearly like, no, like, stay away from me, lady. And she's like flirting with him, and then at one point she's cold, so he gives her his jacket. So she's taking photos with his jacket to try and make Xiao Ting jealous. And that kind of spurs a lot of the why Hao Ting was like so mad at Shigu kind of stuff. But eventually, Shigu's like, nope, stay away from me. And so she kind of gets back with Hao Ting and is like, oh, let's go away together. She's like bragging to her friends how her hot boyfriend's gonna take her away for the weekend. So then like her and Hao Ting meet up, and he basically says, I don't want to date you anymore. He breaks up with her. And I thought, the actress in that scene did amazing. Because you could see like her character felt like that character, even though she didn't have a lot going, her didn't have too much to do for a lot of the show, but I feel like her actress was really good because she made me feel like she was that person that she was really focused on image of having like a perfect boyfriend and maybe having a sense of status, having something to brag about. And so she's like, haha, you're not breaking up with me, right? And she's like clearly like about to lose it, but she's like really trying to hold back the tears and she's trying to smile through. But he's like, no, like it is what it is. And, she's upset, understandably. And later on, her friend who had a crush on her frames Hao Ting for another prank on Shigu. Basically, he photoshops a photo of Shigu in front of a gay bar. And Shigu, of course, works there, and he's plucked. He's like, how did they know? And then Hao Ting is like, Hao Ting also knows that Shigu works there and knows that it would destroy his career and like livelihood. So at this point, he takes the hit for Shigu. He's like, yep, it's me. I photoshopped it. Just put it under the table. And the ex-girlfriend has a great scene where she's like, I don't think he did it. That's not him. That's not his character. He wouldn't sign his name on a note like that. Like, none about this feels like Hao Ting. And then she basically picks up that she thinks it's her friend, and she asks him, she's like, don't bullshit with me. Was it you? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, man, fuck you. And she goes and tells Hao Ting, she's like, listen, here's what happened. Let's fix this. And Hao Ting's like, don't worry about it. We're going to cause more problems for Shigu. And she's like, why do you care about him? He's like, well, I have a crush on him. And she's like, dodged a bullet then. All right, peace. And you're like, I don't know. I just thought, sorry, that was a long spiel. I just thought her character was so interesting. Like, she starts off as this really annoying, almost bratty, like, high school girl. Like, you're like, I hope she grows out of this. But ends up actually being a hero in some ways, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate that they didn't go with the trope of like she's just an awful human being. She's
Mm-hmm.
not. She's a teenage girl. She dates a hot
Right.
guy, and then she's like, actually, you know what? Moving into the future, he's probably not the kind of guy I need to be with. I should probably pick a Yushigu type. And then when that doesn't work, like, okay, well, I'll go back with the hot guy because, you know, hot guy's hot. And there's never any malice in the things that she does. Even when her and Hao Ting break up and she's like, I'm going to show him. And they're like, how are you going to show him? I'm going to date someone even hotter. That way he'll be jealous that he lost me. Like, that's the way that teenagers are. And she's never one who's like, I want to ruin his school life. I want to embarrass him in front of everybody. She's like, no, this is about me. I'm the star here. And how dare he dump the star?
She's
and so I really appreciated that about her.
Mm-hmm.
And then the thing that I didn't understand, and maybe you will follow along with this, the revenge plot of her friend who had a crush on her, like you could tell early on that like he was just kind of sketch. At first I thought maybe he was like her gay friend, and then
I did too.
right.
Oh, it's
and
like
so,
the two girls in the fag. Like it's a you know, here we go.
it's a trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when it turns out that he had a crush on her, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then we never hear from him again, which writers, you could have done better. But I found it really odd that his way of getting revenge for her on Hao Ting was to have Hao Ting be the person tell the administration that Yushigu worked at the gay bar. And the reason I didn't understand that is because Hao Ting wasn't going to get in trouble for telling the school that their top student worked at a gay bar. That wouldn't have gotten him in trouble at all. So why was that the revenge?
Doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, correct me if I'm wrong. So they see those three, you know, the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, the guy that framed her, and the Fujoshi girl. They see Shigu like walking into the gay bar, right? And doesn't the guy take a photo of him?
I thought that the girl took a photo of him, but that's apparently not what they used. I mean, it could be that the photo was blurry and that's why they didn't use it or whatever.
I just think it's a small plot contrivance because I was like, why is this a Photoshop photo when you actually have a photo, like a real photo of him walking in?
Yeah, that was bizarre. But I really wanted to understand, like, how is this going to be revenge for her, for Hao Ting? If anything, it made you seem petty about Shigu, who had told her in no uncertain terms, leave me the fuck alone, don't come near me, I'm not interested.
Right.
So I just didn't get it. And so him disappearing and not being heard from again wasn't a big loss, but like I almost felt like I want to see some revenge for him. Because you didn't have to do this to these two people. This is not how you get someone's affections.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, no, that's kind of main plot. All right, so let us talk about Hao Ting, Shigu, and Hao Ting's family.
Yes.
So Hao Ting and his dad are like two bulls in a china shop. Like when they get together, everything is thrown into chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And Hao Ting invites Yushigu to come over to study, I guess. And the parents aren't home. So he's like, now's a great time for me to, you know, get a little affectionate in the living room. Which, I'm sorry, kids. I don't know if there's any kids watching. Please go to a bedroom. Better safe than sorry.
Even even the first time I watched it, when I was watching that scene, I was so anxious because I'm like, someone's gonna walk in. Because I'm like, you can't do that. You can't do that with your, like, I would feel uncomfortable with, like, if I was straight and doing it and my parents walked in, I would have been super uncomfortable if I was in the closet and doing it. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they're just, like, unbuttoning each other's shirts and, like, making out on the couch, and the parents walk in. And, you know, it goes poorly. So Yushigu is forced out. Hao Ting's parents, you know, scream and yell, and they're basically not happy that their son is with a man, which is uncomfortable and sad and does suck. But it's honest and it's the reality of things, and I'm okay with it, you know?
Yeah. One thing I noticed that this is the first time where like abject disagreement over being homosexual is expressed. Like we had the one mafia guy in Trapped who was like, you know, and you're gay, you know, like that kind of thing.
Mm.
And then we had the ex-wife who's like, I can't believe you'd want a boy over me. But there was never this like running storyline of people disapproving these relationships until this show. And it
Right.
happens twofold. It's Mr. Thomas's family
Right.
doesn't accept him, and that's a running thing in his relationship with Sunbao. And then for Hao Ting, his parents being like, you are already a fuck up. I cannot believe you're trying to be with a boy as well. Dishonor, disgrace will disown you.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate that storyline happened, but it is important because a couple of really different things happen as a consequence to this. Number one, it gets Hao Ting to really fucking clean up his act.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's really got to keep it tight now. But number two, you now get the reciprocation from Shigu that you did not get before. So
Yes.
yeah.
I really liked that character moment. I thought the show was going to do a dumb thing that I was going to hate when I watched it the first time, where Shigu's kind of whole thing is like, he doesn't have a family, but he really wants one. He's never really had a home before. And when he sees, you know, Xiao Ting's parents yelling at him and Xiao Ting saying, I guess I'll just leave. I guess I'll just drop my last name and I won't be a part of this family anymore. Yushigu's kind of like, nope. And I thought they were going to do a thing where Shigu's going to be like, we have to break up because I don't want you to lose your family and yada, yada, yada. And it's like super dramatic. But then the gag is Shigu comes back to Xiao Ting's family. He's like, I really want to be with your son. And I'm like, growth. A character growth. We had this shy boy that couldn't take ownership for anything. He couldn't like ever say what he wanted and actually get the things that he wanted. And finally, he like is on his way to getting what he truly wants, which is a home and someone that just loves him. And he does it. He stands up for himself. He stands up for Xiao Ting. And I was like, growth. That meme where she's like, growth. It's that. Thank you. So yeah, basically the parents, you know, they say, listen, we're okay if our son dates a boy, but he better be good at school at least. They're like, you can be gay, but you better get good grades. So that's the plot, is essentially, you know, Yushigu helps him study to get into one of Taiwan's top universities. And if he gets in, they can date. No questions asked.
Yeah. And I love that. There's so many things about that moment that like storyline wise just turn the tide. So there were a couple of times where Hao Ting kisses Yushigu and Yushigu just accepts a kiss. Like he's like, okay, you kissed me. And there's a moment in episode 6 where they're at this like overlook place and there's a bunch of like fairy lights and stuff and they are drinking hot chocolate and Hao Ting kisses Yushigu and Yushigu like accepts the kiss. Like it's the first time where after getting kissed, he's starting to kiss back. Mm-hmm. But when they're in the parents' house and they're on the couch, Yushigu kisses Hao Ting first. Mm-hmm. And like Hao Ting is riding Yushigu's lap. Like this is the first, it was really hard because this was the first time that Yushigu like initiated the intimacy and also like was an active participant in it. And you're like, oh, they're finally getting to that point where you feel like he really is accepting him. And then this happens and you're prepared for him to be like, okay, I'm not going to make you and your family split up. But one thing that also happens here, besides the fact that Yushigu decides that he's going to go after what he wants, is that he is the one telling Hao Ting, let me take care of this. I will handle this.
Mm-hmm.
I've got you. Like, there's this moment where they're on the phone and he keeps going, Shahating, Shahating, Shahating. And he
Uh-huh.
keeps saying his name, and I'm like, I just love it because very much so with Yushigu having this kind of pitiful backstory, you get the feeling like Hao Ting's his knight in shining armor. He's going to change everything for him. And you don't realize how much Hao Ting needs Yushigu in his own
Mm-hmm.
life.
They
And
really help and shape and change each other for the better. And like,
yeah.
you love to see it. Like, I love the little, like, one of the reasons the parents are even kind of considering them going together is there's a scene where like Yushigu came to talk to his parents and say, I want to be with him. And Hao Ting starts yelling, and Yushigu goes, no, I'm talking to your parents, stay out of this right now. And he listens, he backs down. And the parents are like, he doesn't listen to us, but he listens to him. So maybe that's something to consider, you know? And it helps them move along, you know? I also like how the mom was portrayed with this whole scenario because she clearly doesn't really like it. She's not sure how to feel about it. But you also know that, but like there's a moment where you see him like crying in his room with his sister and the mom is like at the doorway. Like her heart looks like it's broken too. Like she looks like she's like, I really just hurt my baby, you know? But also, I'm not okay with this. But also, that's my kid. And I think they did a really good job with her kind of being like warming up and being the more nurturing one at first because it aligns with her character. I also think traditionally that's usually how it goes. Usually the mom is a little bit more nurturing in scenarios like this with coming out and coming to terms. And that's been a trope for a while, but I also think it's usually pretty close to life too.
Like,
So,
that is the thing that I appreciate about this show. We always talk about, like, best parents in BL, and we look to A Dark Blue Kiss, or we look to, you know, the families in Until We Meet Again. Like, those are held up. But I really felt like this was how families are. In most cases, families learn to adjust. And this is not just for when you find out your child is gay. There are a lot of other situations where families are like, I don't like this, but I love you, and I'm going to find a way to work around this. And I think
right.
that to me is almost more powerful than automatic acceptance, because you really have to go outside of yourself and you really got to grow as a human being to like not let what you've been told all these years keep you from having happiness with the people that you love,
Mhm.
or make you isolate and eventually lose these relationships you have with people that you love. And
Right.
I really, really like that a lot. I think that in a lot of ways, for people that maybe are dealing with this in real life and they can't relate to the parent who accepts things automatically, this is a portrayal that they could really find a lot to have in common. Because
Mhm.
I mean, I could think of some situations that I would have a hard time with. Like, as a parent, if my child was the same age as Sunbow and they walked in with a Mr. Thomas, I'd be like, absolutely the fuck not.
Yeah.
You know,
You just like slam the door.
pretty much. I mean, because like Mr. Thomas, let's just say that Mr. Thomas is on the high side of 27. At this point in the game, Sunbow was probably 18.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And, you know, if your kid comes home with somebody who's, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years older than them and they're a teenager, that's an automatic, I don't think so. Fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But it would take a lot of growth to be like, okay, well, these are the things that you have to do to make me even begin to feel comfortable with this relationship. So I really appreciated that on many different levels, other than just because you find out your son is gay. Just like parents learning how to accept something that maybe previously they were uncomfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then also ultimately seeing how good Shigu was for their son.
Yeah. He literally changed his life for the better.
Yeah.
He really made him a better person.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you lead the conversation about the fever episode and then that kind of melting into their first time.
Oh, that was one of the things that was like a little questionable, you know? It's a little gray. It's a little morally gray stuff is about to happen. So close to a month, so they have basically 5 months to prepare for this exam. And a month out of the exam, Xiao Ting gets like a really bad fever. Like he was working so hard, he literally just overworks himself into a fever. It happens, it sucks, but he'll be fine. And Shigu comes over to check on him, and which, by the way, a great sign for the parents, and like the mom was like letting the mom even be like, oh yeah, your boyfriend can come over and like check on you while you're sick, like that growth. Anyways, basically, I couldn't fully watch this scene, but they basically, Xiao Ting pulls Yushigu onto his lap, and starts just, hand job. They diddle each other. And it's a little forced, and it doesn't feel 100% consensual. So it is a little like, I don't know. It's weird because Yushigu never says yes, and Xiao Ting does like hold his arms back. But also he's done, but like also if he really didn't want it, there's been other times where he like pushed away and said, no, thank you. It almost was like, I don't want to do this with you right now because you're sick. And like, it's not really the time. Also, we're in your parents' house, and the last time you tried to do this, I got kicked out. So I'm not really about to, suck your dick while you're sick with a fever and your mom is hanging outside the door. Yeah. So I do wish they like clarified that a bit, because it was a little uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But it leads to a small rift between Hao Ting and Yushigu. So a few minutes later after that happens, you find out that Hao Ting passed. Hooray, hurrah, they can be together. Everyone's happy. And like, oh, they're gonna go on a trip together and like spend the night away. But there's a couple more scenes where Hao Ting is really like, when are you gonna give yourself to me? And tries to really go at Yushigu, and Yushigu like pushes him away. And, then Hao Ting kind of like leaves in a flurry because he's like, oh, Yushigu's afraid of me. I don't know how to make him not afraid of me. And it's just like, they instead of like talking with each other, they're dumb high school boys, so they didn't talk to each other. But the feeling I got from Hao Ting was, it wasn't so much that like he had to have sex because he's like a sex fiend. I took it as one of his love languages is physical affection. Because there's like the five.
He's a husky.
And his is like, he wants to hold your hand, he wants to be by you. So like, to him, I feel like sex was less about, man, I gotta put my dick in it. It was more like, I need to be close with this person in an intimate way for me to really express how I feel. And it seemed like Yushigu just was not sure about it yet. And that's okay. But again, instead of talking about it, they have a stupid rift. And then they go on this retreat with Bout and Mr. Thomas. And Mr. Thomas basically tells Yushigu, listen, just talk to him. She basically says, just talk to him, you fucking idiot. It seems like you're in love. Just go talk to him. So Yushigu goes to talk to him. He walks up to him, kisses him, and says, I really, really like being with you. I really love you. This is amazing. And then that's Hao Ting, kind of confirmation of like, it's a go. And then they fuck all night long.
And I really appreciate that because, yes, they've been going out for a minute because, they've met and it's been months that they've been studying for this exam. So they've been knowing each other for a while. But somebody like Yushigu, who maybe sex was never even a part of his life, you know, I could see this being difficult for him not knowing what to do, how to do this. And also that incident with the fever, he's like, okay, this was a lot further than my mind had anticipated us being, even though that scene on the couch in the living room makes you feel like maybe he was ready for more, but maybe being confronted with the reality of, you know, Dick's out was just a little bit too much for him.
Mhm.
So I appreciated that, you know, his reaction was a very realistic reaction. How Ting misunderstanding the reaction was unfortunate, but
Mhm.
it did lead to a good conversation about, like, this is where our relationship is. Don't misunderstand. And also the lesson that you really do have to talk to your lover. Don't let
Right.
it be that what you assume about them is what you're going to go by as being the gospel truth. Maybe your assumptions are wrong. And so I really like that a lot. And of course, you know, it's a beautiful moment. It's very classy. It's very intimate. It's
Mhm.
wonderful. What you said about the love language for Houting is so fucking true, because like in that scene with him and Sunbow at the food stand, he's like, what is that feeling when you want to eat someone whole? Like that is how he feels about Yushigu. He wants to consume him and be consumed by him.
Mhm.
And so like I'm glad that even though they had this disagreement, it was resolved fairly quickly, and it led to them going to another level in their relationship that they hadn't previously been. So by the time they leave this retreat, their relationship is practically perfect. And episode 9 is the cherry on top episode where everything that could go right goes right, and it is utterly devastating in hindsight.
Yes. One of the things that I really loved, I think it was episode 9, was how they made it really seem like Yushigu had like integrated into Hao Ting's friend group, which I thought was very sweet because he had no friends. And now he has a loving boyfriend and he has brothers now. He has people you can call his brother. And like, that's just so sweet. I love the scene where they're in the cafe and it's a little cringy, honestly, when they all just start kind of growling and barking. But it was like, God damn, these are just some dumb teenage boys. And I could see them all doing that. And you know, they just kind of like make fun of each other. That was great. Oh man. And then Xiaoting brings him to an apartment where they're gonna live together. It's so fucking sweet. And Yushiku's like, it's exactly what I wanted. It's like we have a terrace and like there's like it's not just like because his apartment was like
A room.
a room and then like a toilet in the corner. Like it was very, very small. And like the end of episode 9 is like they had moved in and all their friends were coming over for like a fun like housewarming party. And it's all great and everything's good.
Okay, so before we get to the tragedy, two things. I really liked the scene where he's on the roof talking to his parents, and then Hao Ting shows up
Yes.
and just confirms that, like, all of our dreams are coming true, baby. It's you and me, and we're gonna make this thing happen. Like, I love that. I love the fact that when Hao Ting gets into the top 5 university, he like immediately hits the door running to go tell his man.
Uh-huh.
And when they're in the boba restaurant, and you can see that like Shigu's like, oh man, I hope I did enough. I hope this works. I hope this works.
Mm-hmm.
At first he comes in, he's like, you know, kind of making a pouty face. He's like, we did it, baby, we did it. And they're like really just being super cheesy romantic. And Mr. Tom's like, guys, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
And like they have these moments throughout the show where they're just so in each other that the people around them like, this is fucking disgusting, guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
stop. But I really love that because episode 9, after everything that Shigu's been through, they have a scene where they show him as a little boy and he's asking his aunt, when are my parents going to come for me? Because his aunt tells him, you know, your parents are going on a trip to the stars. You're going to have to live with me for a while. And he's like, a month? A week? When are they coming back? And of course she can't. What do you tell a child?
Right. He was like, what, 5 or something?
Yeah, he was little. And like that the boy that they got to play him as a child, when the aunt gives him a hug because she just can't even talk anymore and express it, the little boy's patting the lady on the back. So you get this sense that like Yushigu's always been just like a really precious bun. And so to see him get friends, get the school he always wanted to, get the apartment he's always wanted to live in, get the person who finally made him feel like he had family, and even, you know, we saw a shade of it, but get family acceptance from Houting's family. Like right before the very last scene, they're cooking lunch for Houting's family who's going to come over and eat lunch with them in their apartment. Like, things are great up to this point. And even Sunbao and Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas's nephew is actually the superstar pop star from History 2, or History 1.
History 1.
Yeah, History 1, which, you know, great throwback. Mr. Thomas even has like some family that still talks to him, and him and Sunbao had this huge moment on the bridge where they were like, I love you, marry me, I'm gonna get you back home to your family. Which we didn't talk enough about that scene, but that scene is like, I wanna love like this. But like everyone is at a point now where they're like, things are really getting good. And then all of a sudden things start going in slow motion.
So before we get to episode 10, I would like to do a preamble to lead into why episode 10 is the worst thing I'd ever seen and destroys my hopes and dreams. So, first of all, spoiler alert for fucking episode 10, the ruining of my hopes and dreams. In story, like, I was always taught that, like, everything needs to be earned. You know, really good. I'm going to go back to Parks and Rec. I know that's like a weird connection to keep making in this, but I'm going to go back to Parks and Rec. Leslie Knope, like, from the jump, wants to be on city council. She works in the parks department, but she really wants to move higher up in government. And she actively works extremely hard at her job to get where she needs to go. And in season 4, she eventually gets, you know, picked to be a nominee. So, you know, these, like, I don't know, like a campaign running people, I don't know what they're called. They come up to her and they're like, hey, we think you would be really good at city council. Do you want to run? Because we've seen your past work and what you've done for this town is really great. So already we're establishing that her past work has set her up for this job that she has been wanting since episode 1, you know? And sees, you know, it's a long ride. Season 4, a lot of ups and downs. She, by a narrow margin, pulls it off. And Leslie Knope wins the city council. And every time I see that scene, I cry. And she does it. You're like, her hard work paid off. She worked hard. She did what she had to do. It felt earned. It didn't feel like they were giving it to her because she's the main character and everything has to go well. Because in a later season, she gets recalled. She gets recalled and she has to pick herself back up. You know, she lost a dream job. It literally is the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And that's like, so for storytelling, it's just a good example of like, there's a setup, there's a payoff. This character had a mission statement. They worked towards it and they got it. So we have Yushigu. He wants a home. He wants a family. You know, he wants to work hard at his studies in order to obtain a good life for himself. So throughout the series, he is constantly working towards that and learns to stick up for himself a little bit more. He learns to open up to people, you know. So when you get to episode 9 and him and Houting are really happy and it seems like everything's come together, it feels earned because both characters, it was a long road to get there for the both of them. And they both worked hard and they deserve what they're getting. And then in episode 10, it's a 6-year jump and Yushigu is dead. Why is he dead? I don't fucking know. It doesn't make any sense. There is nothing story-wise that Yushigu should be dead. Like, if you're gonna kill a character, it needs to be earned. Like, Cersei Lannister dying at the end of Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert, sorry. Like, yeah, she was a total
Everyone
cunt.
died
Like,
at the end of Game of Thrones. No need to spoiler alert.
yeah, like, you know, she was a total bitch and like had it coming. Like, she had that death coming. What did Yushigu do to deserve this death? Like, there is a small setup is too nice of a term for it, too good of a term for the scene where Yushigu's about to cross the street and Hao Ting like, pulls him out of the way from a motorcyclist or something, or a car. Yeah, we find out Yushigu gets hit by a car on the way to the grocery store, I think, to pick up like salt because they're cooking for Hao Ting's family. And it's kind of alluded to that Hao Ting sees the crash happen because he runs out because he realizes that Yushigu left his wallet.
Oh, he says as much. When he's like drunk crying at Sunbao's place, he's like, I couldn't do anything. I saw him lying there and I couldn't do anything.
I never felt so cucked by a show before. Because what did we do to deserve that as a viewer? These characters didn't deserve it. It makes me like genuinely, it makes me so mad because like, why did they kill him? Why? Just to have a sad ending for shits and giggles, I guess? Like, tell me the story reason. Tell me the reason he had to die. No. We deserved a happy ending. We deserved episode 10, 6 years in the future. And it's just, we're catching up where everyone is and establishing that everyone's happy and that our characters that work so hard throughout episodes 1 through 9 got their just desserts.
The thing that also pissed me off that I found extremely disingenuous and like, fuck y'all, in the very beginning of episode 10, Hao Ting is at his mother's house, his parents' house, and his mother's like, oh, you're going to pick him up from the airport? He helped you to get into your U.S. school, so he deserves something. The character that he's picking up from the airport, we don't actually see that character. And I'll tell you why I say that. They do this plot contrivance where there's a look-alike character who is basically the actor who plays Yushigu, but they dub over his voice to establish that it's somebody else. And apparently this is a guy that Hao Ting ran into while he was hiking. They're both physics students at the same university, and this guy is like a bro. He's like, yeah, that's cool that you're going to the U.S. I wish I could find a girl. Hey, you're going to give me your camping gear? All right. Oh, you're paying for lunch? That's fucking cool. Like, this guy. But this guy's younger than Hao Ting. There's no possible way that that guy was the guy who got him into the U.S. grad school. So there's an invisible character that he's supposed to be picking up from the airport who helped him get into U.S. grad school and who could possibly be staying at his parents' house, and that he should be super grateful, did all this stuff for him. And when I saw that, I wanted to throw my phone across the room because I'm like, that's so fucked up. You didn't have to do all that.
It's a fake out.
You didn't have to do all that. Like, there's a difference between being a fake out and being a fucking fraudulent lie. That was a fucking fraudulent lie.
I would like to officially Venmo request the director and writer of the show for the emotional distress you put upon me for my fucking time as well. Please send me $10,000 via PayPal. Thank you.
I mean, you at least owe me a free Vicky membership. A month is
for
on
life.
you.
For life.
Yeah.
I better get free Asian dramas for life.
Because this was a lie. It wasn't a fake out. It was an actual lie. Because this person that helped him get into U.S. grad school that might be staying at his parents' place never mentioned again. So what was the fucking point of mentioning this person in the first place if they're never to be brought up again? Another person who's brought up that we never even fucking see is supposedly his new relationship with a bitch named Phoebe. And yeah, I'm calling her a bitch. I'll tell you why I'm calling her a bitch. Because what kind of person gets in a relationship with someone who is so fucking utterly broken? And I'm saying this from the point of view of somebody who's been the rebound and has looked for the rebound. This man is not healed. This man is still completely living in the past. What are you doing? Why are you with this person? Like, what deficit of character do you have that you decide that this is going to be my new man when he is laid up here staring at a box of crackers crying?
Right. It's not until like the very last scene where it's Hao Ting and Sunbo, and Hao Ting is like, I'm gonna travel to the Himalayas to travel, to basically I'm gonna go see the stars because I'm finally ready to see him. He died 6 years ago and he's just now ready? Fuck you, Phoebe.
Yeah, Phoebe, you're not doing your fucking job. Your man is still hurt. And also, you have terrible taste in clothes because when we went to the clothing shop, they're like, she likes earth tones, right? Dirt green, vomit, brown. These are it was just, I hate her. Fuck you. Also, low key, two things. In the very last scene when Sunbo is talking to Hao Ting, I feel like Sunbo was like low key trying to invite him to the threesome. Because he asked him, like,
oh.
The reason I say that is because he's like, so, Yushigu, back in the day when I asked you if you like guys, you said it was only him. How do you feel about that now? I don't know why, but I kind of got the feeling it was like, so.
I didn't. I think he was just trying to see if, like, he figured out his sexuality a bit.
I'm just saying we watched that scene, and it kind of felt like, hey, you seem to be in a good mood. How do you feel about guys? Which, it's a weird emotional thing. Emotionally, we're not there, but whatever. That and, like, I honestly do not feel like this show ended with Hao Ting healing. I think he was really trying to get across the point, like, yeah, I'm ready to go join him in the Himalayan mountains. I'm going to fucking kill myself when I get up there.
Oh, not a happy ending at all.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like he was pretty much letting him know, the plan is I'm going to go do a few things that Yushigu said he wanted to do in life, and then the last stop is the Himalayan mountains where I'm going to throw myself off the side of the mountain.
Yeah. It's fucking terrible. There is one good scene that was a happy cry. And it's the scene where Mr. Thomas's cousin comes to visit, and he's like, look, Thomas, Sunbao, I have a message from Grandpa, aka Mr. Thomas's dad. And essentially he says he would like you to come home. He would like you and your boyfriend to come home. He's ready to move on. And Mr. Thomas goes to his bedroom and, like, Disney princess collapses on the bed in tears, which love, a drama queen. But that's the only happy cry, because you're like, at least Mr. Thomas gets a win. He deserves a win too, but, like, at least something good happens to somebody.
And also, it just sucks that that's couched in this episode, because in any other circumstance, that is a massive win. At the time that Mr. Thomas met Sunbao, he hadn't seen his family probably in almost a decade. Add another 6 years on top of that, this man hasn't been around his family
for half
in probably
half his life. He hasn't seen his family.
Yeah, so this is like a massive win, and it is something that deserves like real tears and, just like everything. But you can't even celebrate with them because everything is still a fucking shit show.
Because I'm like busy being mad about everyone else, and I will say, this is a little embarrassing. One of the hardest cries I ever had was watching this episode the first time, because they made me care about Yushigu so goddamn much that when they kill him for no reason, it really was for no reason. Like, I don't get it. It really hurt me. Like, I couldn't even rewatch the episode for this review. I saved it for this morning, and I was gonna watch it before we started. And I started watching it, and I was like, and then I skipped to the good scene with Mr. Thomas, and then I skipped around a little bit, but I was like dry heave sobbing at 8:30 in the morning on my hotel bed, and I'm like, this isn't the look for me today. And I closed my computer and was like, you know what? I can't watch this again.
Yeah,
it's at episode 9, 5 minutes before the end of episode 9. That's where it ends. The friends come over for dinner, and it ends. A steep end, a sharp end.
So I would like to talk about plagiarism.
Here we go.
Shortly after the last episode of History Make Our Days Count aired, someone brought out the fact that this had an eerie similarity to chapter 13 of the manga Lucky-kun. Lucky-kun is a manga that came out in the 90s, early 90s, I think, in Japan. And it is a manga about two boys who go to the same school, and they become stepbrothers because their parents marry each other. And one of the characters has anemia, and because he has anemia, he has a tendency to pass out. Well, during a moment when the two brothers are together after having made love, he goes to the store to get something and passes out from his anemia and gets hit by a vehicle and dies in the street in his brother's arms. The reason why the brother was there is because he forgot his wallet in the hotel room and he was going to go give it to him. Episode 13 deals with a doppelganger. Episode 13 deals with 6 years into the future. Episode 13 of Lucky-kun is exactly the ending of History 3 Make Our Days Count. It is the laziest, most offensive, and outright disrespectful episodes of plagiarism I have ever seen. First of all, let us be very clear. Yaoi manga is not brand new. There are decades of yaoi manga to go through. And because of that, almost every situation under the sun has been explored and exploited. Why would you choose a manga that ends in such a dissatisfying way? Because even at the time, people hated the way that that manga ended. Why would you pick a manga with such a dissatisfying ending to be the blueprint in order to establish Make Our Days Count?
Mm-hmm.
That's just because you want to have meaning to what you're doing and you want to seem deep. That's not how you go about this. It's lazy, it's cheap. It shows that you don't have any creativity because it is the scene in the cafe with the doppelganger and Haoting, a shot-for-shot remake of the Lucky-kun manga. It is just, you're a fucking hack. Writer, you're a fucking hack. And please don't bring this bitch back to History 4. Whatever you do not bring this person back. There are so many beautiful mangas out there. I just got through reading a manga a couple of weeks ago called Sign Language, about a guy who gets a job at a cafe and the cafe owner is deaf, and he's attracted to the cafe owner's voice. The cafe owner is attracted to his fingers when he signs. Romance ensues. There's so many other things that you could use for inspiration, that you could use to retell, to provide insight, to kind of steer you in a direction. This is not the way you do that because it doesn't make you seem deep. Stupid people and people who can't think on their own might be like, oh, that's so fucking deep. We're learning to cherish our lives. But those of us who live in the real world, who live with Corona, Trump, all the rest of it, I don't need you to tell me that every day is precious.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I'm sitting here wondering when our last days are going to come. You don't need to tell me that. Instead, what would have made a much better ending is that it would have shown maybe that the dad passed away, like Haoting's father passed away. And Haoting's father leaves a note for him saying, I spent so much time fighting with you, but secretly I fought with you so much because you reminded me of myself. And I regret the times that you felt like you couldn't be close to me because of your boyfriend or because of our disagreement. So now that we're in this moment in time, I'm telling you, as the head of a family, make your days count.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let yourself be lost in petty arguments with your husband. Don't let yourself be lost in petty arguments with your children. Do better than I did. Like something like that would have been apropos. Or, something with Mr. Thomas with his own father, being invited to his father's deathbed, being like, I'm so sorry I pushed you away for so many years. I didn't mean to do that, and I'm letting you know now before I die, I owe you an apology, and I didn't want to go away until I gave you this apology. Or bring back Yushigu's aunt and have her be there and be like, I have this memento from your parents that they wanted you to have. They had been saving money since you were a baby, and this is an heirloom from them. And then he sees it, and it's like, it's a telescope or something really sentimental. And on it's like, make all of your days count like so many stars in the sky, something like that. But there are so many ways that you could drive home the title than this bullshit.
It's so stupid.
It's cheap. It's what it when all else fails, kill a main character for immediate emotional impact. It's cheap. It is the shortcut of hack writers.
So $10,000 via PayPal, Venmo. I'll take a check, cash, $10,000.
Yeah, or send Hao Ting's daddy here, because like I will take payment in ass.
So before I forget, I do want to say that I have a weird connection to the lead actor.
Oh, that's right!
So the lead actor who plays Hao Ting, his name is Wayne. And I posted about the fact that I was watching the show on Instagram. And an acquaintance of mine from college commented. She replied to my Instagram story, and she was like, and she's from Taiwan. She goes, "Oh my God, that's Wayne. I went to college with him. He's a really nice man." And I was like, and she's like, "Yeah, we went to college together." Because she went to a college before she came to the one I was at. So she already had a degree, I think. But yeah, they went to college together. And she was like, "Yeah, he's a genuinely really nice man. I'm glad that life is working out for him." I was like, I didn't press her too much because I didn't know her I really truly did not know her that well. And also it's kind of not my business, but it was just this world is so small that I'm 1 degree of separation away from knowing this man. The fact that we might be mutual friends on Facebook, goddamn, that's weird.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
And with you being 1 degree, I'm 2. So yay for me.
And
we
you
win.
3.
Yeah, you guys watch us, so that's 3. I mean, we got it in. So, I mean, now it's time to give our number review. And I just want, go ahead.
I was going to say, instead of giving me $10,000 via PayPal, I say they should pay the actors in the show, because apparently they didn't get paid. Or there was an issue with payment.
Okay, so History 3 Make Our Days Count, I believe, was crowdfunded.
Okay.
And I guess the money they thought they were going to make on the show, they didn't make. And the people who helped to crowdfund were super angry and vitriolic towards the production team, which they deserved. And so with no money coming in, with negative opinions from the viewing public, the actors didn't actually make any money off of this show. They do fan meets, and I think they get a little money from fan meets and stuff like that. Funny. But no direct money from the production company, as far as we can tell.
Right. And that's a shame for a lot of reasons, but I will say we didn't talk about it much because there's so much else to say. The acting in the show is amazing. All of them were really good, especially the 2 leads. Sunbo was amazing too. I thought Mr. Thomas was really great. Everyone, the parents, the sister, we didn't even get to the sister. This show was really good. There was a lot to talk about, but the acting was really something special. So take that a note as well.
Yeah, so this show, if I had to give it a numerical review, I want you guys to know this is an 8.5 because it lost an entire point for the way it ended. And honestly, if I was being truthful, I would let it lose 2 points. But I don't want to discourage you from watching the first 9 episodes because they are very valuable. But this ending, the fuck out of here. This show should have been a 9. it should have been a 9. I mean, I nitpicked about, you know, the whole thing with Hao Ting's ex-girlfriend and her friend. Like, that was a nitpicky thing. I talked about how, you know, the relationship between Sun Bao and Mr. Thomas, a little bit more background before they got super involved with each other would have been appreciated. Even maybe a little bit more of, like, Yushigu's life before Hao Ting entered it. Maybe that would have been kind of cool. But outside of that, this show is almost flawless.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that ending that gets it from a 9.5 to an 8.5 for me. And I even sometimes feel like that's generous because they really screwed the pooch on this ending.
I feel like there's times where I'm watching the show where I'm like, a 10, amazing, mwah, 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 give it all the Emmys. And then you watch the last episode and you're like, it's -5. Like, fuck this all day. I feel like 8.5 is fair. I feel like I want to give it a 9 because I think I personally like it. I feel like personally this is my favorite boys' love I've ever seen. So I want to rank it higher, but I'm trying to be a bit more, yeah. I'll join you with 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot underestimate the emotional toll you will go through watching this show. So I would say all the way up to episode 4, it's a standard by the numbers boys love in a lot of ways. Like, there's some really good elements, but it's still kind of a standard boys love. When you hit episode 5, that's when, like, the emotional buy-in really steps its pussy game up.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you're in episode 9, you're invested. You're invested in every fucking character in this show, even if you don't remember their names. And it is just such a betrayal of your audience to pull the shenanigans that they pulled.
Agreed.
All right, so usually this is where Samantha's rant would be, but I mean, you already heard it, so I think we're cool on that. I just have like a small mini rant for you guys, and I mean, I feel like it's tiny, but Still Together is still airing, and yeah, I'm tired. We're going to talk about it next week, so I'm not going to give the game away, but I'm just really tired of what is essentially a commercial dressed up as a continuation of a show. And I would really like for GMM TV to maybe reconsider the way that they're doing things, because there's a lot of goodwill that has been established, and there might be some people who are like shallow and just want to see like cute moments and this is enough to feed them, but there are others of us who felt like we were promised additional story.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we were just sold a bunch of products. And so that's my miniature rant for that, because I feel like you could do better, and you haven't so far. And I'm almost not even looking forward to talking about this show next week, because it has been such a letdown so far.
Yeah. Well,
and also, Because of You is coming back.
It's what we deserve. It's what we deserve. We earned this, Sam. We fucking earned this.
We did. Taiwan, good looking out, sis.
If you need help, I'll help donate.
Yes. Is there a GoFundMe? I've got money for you. Is there a GoFundMe?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So incredibly excited.
Yeah. I don't need groceries this week. I'll help you.
So now it's time for me to talk about Instagrams. This show is chock full of wonderful Instagrams.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to leave the screen real quick to grab my manga of the week off the bedside table. So don't mind me. Continue on.
Focus on me, people. So as you might have noted already, me and Mason continuously talk about Mr. Thomas as Mr. Thomas. There's a reason why. Because on Instagram, his Instagram name is Mr. Thomas. However, there's a whole bunch of underscores for his Instagram name, so I really don't feel comfortable spelling it out for you. But if you were to go onto Instagram and type in Thomas Chung, and there was an Instagram account that came up that was Mr. Thomas, and then like 5 underscores, more than likely that's him. But yeah, there are a lot of underscores in some of the Instagrams I'm going to give you now, and I really don't know how many underscores there are. So just roll with me on this, and we'll make our way through. But yeah, Mr. Thomas is on Instagram. His name is Thomas Chang, Chang, and he's great. He's beautiful. He posts beautiful pictures, and I highly recommend you follow him. If you like his partner, Bout, he is at will_entertain, which is 1 underscore, so it's really easy to follow. But Will is spelled with 1 L, so it's WIL_entertain, which is ENTERTIAN. And his Instagram's a little bit weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a mixture of his photography stuff that he does, which a lot of times he's not in, and then some pictures of him with his friends. So during the times when it is him, it's great, but when it's just like his photography, sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's a little bit boring because he does a lot of landscape photography. Next, we have Wayne, who his Instagram is actor_Wayne. So it's ACTOR_WAYNE, actor_Wayne. And Wayne's Instagram is always really great because he's been working a lot lately, so you always get what his next production is, behind the scenes of his productions. Anytime he does anything with the cast from Make Our Days Count, he always posts pictures, so it's a really good time. Also, Wayne and the actor that plays his partner Shigu, Chunchi, I feel like they're like really good friends because they have a lot of stuff that they do together that has nothing to do with them being on various shows. It's just like them hanging out in the woods or something. So that's always really fun to see because you're like, oh, how Ting and Shigu are still together. And then there's Chunchi, who is Shigu, and his is CHUNCHIH_HUANG. So it's Chunchi_Huang, because that's his name. And his Instagram is fun too. He is actually a model. That's his like full-time gig. So a lot of his Instagram has his modeling photographs on it. So that's really nice as well. So I think you guys will really enjoy those. But as a side note, there are 3 Instagrams I'd like you guys to look up just for shits and giggles. There's one Instagram account which is ND3_J Twins. I know that's tough. I think it's 3 underscores. It might be 2. But the twin brothers from the show, they each have their own Instagram account. One is like J_N__N. The other one's J_D____N. And then they have their twin account where they have their pictures that they take together, which is very interesting. So like each twin has their own account that's just them like showing body. And that literally is all their Instagram is like them showing body. Mm-hmm. And then they have their modeling photographs that they take together that they post on their twin account. So look them up. All of the actors' names you can find on my drama list, which we don't give enough praise to my drama list. But let me just come through and say my drama list is high-key the champ for us to be able to do this show. Mm-hmm. The commentary is important. They have most of the actor names for most of the shows we watch. They update you on sequels when those are going to be posted. They help you to trace if it's a prequel or a sequel so you know what order to watch stuff in. So my drama list is a great resource if you're wanting to get a little bit more information about who the actors are in certain parts of the show, if you want to low-key, high-key internet stalk them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my Instagrams of the day.
Yay! I follow all of them.
I mean, they're great Instagrams.
They are. So my manga of the week is Replay. Ooh, you cannot see that well. Published by Tokyo Pop. I literally got this a few days ago. It was recommended to me online, and I thought the drawing on the cover was so cute. It's just very soft boys. And I'm recommending this one because I feel like you're gonna need something nice and fluffy and something that'll make you smile after you watch Make Our Days Count and have your night ruined, unless you do what I recommend, which is watch episodes 1 through 9 and then watch the last few minutes of Life, Love on the Line, where we see Hao Ting and Shigu at the Himalayan mountains, and you're like, wow, happiness is real. But this is just a very standard boys' love. They're two best friends. They used to play baseball together, but season's over. They're about to go to college, and they're kind of figuring out, were we friends because of baseball, or are we friends because there's something more there? And yeah, it's a boys' love. There's something more there, but very sweet, very wholesome, quick read, good art, overall, just solid cuteness. So yeah, that's Replay. It's published by Tokyo Pop.
I think that was a great suggestion. I really, really liked it. Thank you so much. A little housekeeping before this episode is over. We are going to be doing the review of Still Together next week. Just so you guys know, in case everybody's wondering what to be watching. It's a 5-episode arc, so it's not a lot of investment time. You can watch it on 1.5 speed if you're watching it on YouTube. Get that shit over with and done. And then after that, the hope is to do Game Boys. We're not entirely sure just yet, but we feel like that's where we're headed with this. So just keep your eyes peeled. Catch up if you can, because there are 12 episodes in. I think the last episode is episode 13, which should be airing this weekend. And also, I want to give a shout out to 2 different channels. One shout out is to a channel, and the guy who runs the channel, it's named after him. It's Archie Perez. He does Boys Love reviews, and he did a miniature rant about History 3 Make Our Days Count. I've never watched any other videos on his channel, but I have to give it to him. It takes a lot to be brave enough to get on this internet and talk shit about things that people love.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave a very real rant about his feelings regarding this show at the time that it aired. And I really think it's really brave of him to do that. So Archie Perez is another person who also saw much of the fault in this last episode. And then Aggie Brown, who, if you watch our videos maybe a week or so after we do them, you'll see that she consistently leaves us really good comments on our videos. She's recently returned to YouTube, which is amazing and exciting. And she's returned to YouTube to talk about Boys Love. She talked about Love by Chance, A Chance at Love, those first 2 episodes, which I have my own rant about that on my channel, Shawwall 360. But she also talked about Still Together while it's currently airing, kind of like what she feels about that show and where it's headed. So we just want to give a lot of love to Aggie, because she's been one of our day ones. We've known her well before we even started talking about Boys Love through YouTube. She's just always been a real one, and so we're grateful to have her support in every way.
Yeah. Man,
and also,
we need to get some guests on here at some point. That'd be fun.
I would love to do a threesome with Aggie. The Zoom sense, guys, clean your minds. Maybe when we do Pearl Next Door, we can get her on it, because she knows a lot more about GL than we do, so maybe she can help us out with that, if she's willing to. But yeah, shout out to her. Also, Light Baby, we know each other on Twitter, but also she consistently comments here on the YouTube, and so thank you so much for the consistent comments. We really appreciate everybody who watches us, for sure, but this is a bit of housekeeping that's been long overdue, because a lot of times their comments really keep us going in a lot of different ways. So thank you guys so much for your constant contributions to what we've been doing here. So, also, side note, since I mentioned it already and I said to go ahead and check out my rant on my channel, just a reminder to all our friends and family, don't give Mame a fucking cent. Watch all her shit on bootleg.
And yes, we will have our rant video on Mame coming up soon. I wanted to wait. We recorded it after Trapped last week, but I wanted to wait until after Make Our Days Count so we could kind of have the histories. If we could have them in a row, might as well try to have histories 2, 2, and 3 in a row. So that'll come up a few days after you guys see this.
Yeah. So we will definitely talk about it. Definitely, I wish that we had maybe filmed it after these first 2 episodes of Love by Chance aired, because I have more to say, but that's on my Shawwall 360 channel, so it is what it is. But yeah, we will definitely be talking about Mame and the pariah that she is to the boys love industry. Thank goodness that we still have Taiwan.
Yeah. Because of you. All right. All right, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Bye.